Now, earlier, Harold didn't want to run. He was doing very well in the Congress. They liked him there. He could work the floor. And he had been, at the suggestion of the Speaker of the House, he worked the floor to get continuation of the voter rights bill. And he did that. So he was, people liked him. He was happy in D.C. And when we were interviewing people after Lou Palmer, we shall see in '83, we had interviewed a lot of people, but none of them, we thought, could defeat either James Byrne or Richard M. So we suggested Harold, and Harold came to the meeting. He said, if you raise $100,000 and register 50,000 new voters, I'll consider it. What he didn't know or take in consideration was, by this time, liberals and radicals had gotten to the liberals and radicals in the Hispanic community. And because of the insults that had been inflicted on the black community by James Byrne, there was a great deal more interest in who was going to be the next mayor. What he didn't also understand is that the founder of the African American Patrolmen's League was very interested in making the change.
Is that Renault Robinson?
Renault Robinson, yeah, Renault Robinson. Thank you so much, because I'm telling you, I'm realizing how backward I am right now.
Well, I'm just...
No, fill in. No, don't.
I'm just a second or two ahead of you.
Don't do it. And what he didn't know, and I didn't know either, was that we had a friend who was a multimillionaire, Ed Gardner. And I'd known Ed Gardner for years and years. He's a quiet guy. He doesn't, he didn't stand out and say, I'm rich. Renault, I had helped Renault get to know him, so Renault was raising money for the Afro-American Patrolmen's League. And we had a fundraiser at the mansion, the white womanizer that created the magazine.
Yeah, Hugh Hefner.
Hugh Hefner.
Right.
Yeah. And Hugh Hefner would lend that out to people for good causes. So Renault was able to get his mansion. We raised money. And he had asked me, did I know Ed Gardner? And Ed called me to confirm that Renault was okay, and that his concerns were now social. Well, when Harold had made his recommendation that we have $100,000 and raise 50,000, we thought he'd worked it out. What I didn't also know was, he's dead now, Jewish radical was in cahoots with Latino radical. And so when when we talked about the voter registration, Renault went to Ed Gardner, and Ed Gardner pledged his advertising budget to voter registration, $250,000. And Sid, wasn't Sid Ardauer, again, like Sid Ardauer,
Right.
went to the leader of the voter registration of the Mexican American community to get him into the race. And Ed Gardner's promise. I had a former student who was buying the old department store that was at 47th and King, near 47th and King Drive, the South Center, South Center department store. So he gave us space that didn't cost any money. And what he didn't also was that the enthusiasm for young blacks and whites over the leadership in the city hall. And they were ready. So when Ed Gardner gave us this money and we had this free space, and through Sid, when Sid, but anyways, a guy like Sid Ardell.
What was it, Irving Harris? Who, I'm
No,
trying to think of.
No, his grandchildren were killed in the flight over coming from, oh God, I should remember. But he didn't, and that friendship with the leader, voter, the political leader at that time in the Latino and the Mexican community was looking for help and willing to give. So I went to this leader and we joined. They had a little money, not much, but a little money. And what we know with these young enthusiasts who were willing to hit the streets and do voter registration. Right. So in that 1 month, in the September and October, we come alive October 5. Lou Palmer created another to come alive for. And bus drivers would jokingly say on the bus, anyone who's not registered, get off my bus. I was able to organize faculty people with the help of others in city colleges. A student walked in my classroom, and that was true of others. I said, show me your voter registration card. And the peer pressure would come from those who had the voter registration card. And so, in a natural kind of way, without too much effort, we eventually, in the month of September primarily, but before the race was over, we had registered 263,000 brand new voters. And when I went to Harold and said, and Ed Gardner had gone to other black businessmen, George Johnson, Al Johnson, all not related, but all multimillionaires.
Right. Al Johnson, he's the auto dealer.
Yeah, he's the auto dealer. Right. But we got John Johnson, right, who was a Republican in our corner. And they began to meet, and they'd raised much more than $1 million. So when I went to Harold and told him the figures, I said, what you gonna do now, man? He said, I guess I gotta run. And I fired up enthusiasm again. I remember being on a bus. I'd stopped driving by this time. And I've been on a bus, and bus driver said, well, when Harold was nominated, the enthusiasm rose. That was a big night. And if you didn't have on a Harold Washington button, you were poorly dressed. That was that kind of bus driver said, anybody who's not for Harold Washington, get off my bus, jokingly. And I remember being on a bus and a little girl, looking at the bus was full, and looking at her mama like only children can do. Teasingly said, "Mama, I know how to spell Harold Washington." Mama laughingly said, "Go ahead and spell it, baby." The bus gets quiet. And she spells Harold Washington. That's the reason we need so many young people. They're so creative. She said, laughingly said, "But I don't know how to spell Jane Byrne." Was a rover. And that was the kind of feeling. Now, the general, after saw his the sole candidate against Harold, we thought maybe didn't have too much to worry about, but then we soon found out that's when I had to go to Lewis. It was a continuing tribute to the civil rights movement and Dr. King, because the leadership people were, wherever the communities were, coming from the same thing. The feelings of optimism when Harold was elected were great. We registered 85% of the potential eligible voters in the black community. We had a turnout of somewhere around, again like that. 98% of the blacks voted for Harold, but he only won by 49,000 votes in a Democratic city. And in the next election, by this time, his base is eroding because the conflict, racial and others, is coming in. People that I had who were skeptical, they're skeptics. This is what worries me again about our president, had lost faith in Harold. And when I was trying to get to him, I couldn't get to him. He was blocked off.
This is when he ran for re-election.
For re-election.
Right.
Your base is eroding. I knew that. See, one of the advantages that I have is I hung out with the hoodlums when I was growing up. They wouldn't let me be a hoodlum, but somehow they let me be in the group. So I had helped get the hoodlums because they were skeptics in the beginning. They didn't believe, as far as they would say to me, it doesn't matter. It doesn't make a damn bit of difference. We're still niggas. That feeling about leadership. Because of my street style, I said, "Come on, man, come on. You guys got to get ready to vote. What you talking about? What do you think about your children, your grandchildren? What you?" They did that, but with a great deal of pessimism about it. And when Harold didn't announce that you got a division between races, poor whites, poor blacks, in competition with one another. And so the establishment, because Harold came up with the establishment, he selects around him blacks of the establishment. One of the first things they did, we were through in a minute, sweetheart. One of the first things that they do is lock him off from those of us, like Lou Palmer, Tim Black. Within that cover, he has almost no communication with those who laid the base.